There's a few things I want to say about her. She was raised in Loma Linda since the age 4. She graduated from the nursing program, and after that she pursued a degree in kinesiology, and then she continued to obtain a master's degree on physician assistant studies, and then OBGYN residency in 2010. And then she started working for the physician assistant program in 2011. And currently she's a chair of the PA program. And then in 2014, she started her DrPH in lifestyle medicine, which later was changed to preventive medicine and then preventive care. She's one of the last students under the 100+ unit program. According to the data she reported to me, she's currently a busy mom with 2 kids and is training for an Ironman this November. She enjoys the outdoors and traveling, hanging out with family and friends, and playing sports. So we welcome Dr. CATHERINE OMS to Preventive Care Grand Rounds.
How are you doing? How's everybody doing? Good? All right. So I see very familiar faces here. I actually have the chair of my committee, Dr. Medina. Hello, hello.
Hi, Gabby.
I've also worked with Dr. Palani as well, so glad you're here, and obviously Dr. Dos Santos. So what basically what I was referring to was, I don't know, you guys are newer students, and so you probably have been ingrained in the newer format for preventive care. So I was in the old format where it was still like 108 units that we have to complete to graduate, and I know Dr. Medina's pain as well, because he went through it, and Dr. Palani as well. So it was definitely a long process. I was only a part-time student, so I only took about 2 classes every quarter. So my journey has been really long for this program, but it's just with the perseverance and my professors tolerating me for all these years. I just really, really thank them for just their huge support and just being a huge guide and a mentor to me. So I hope you guys the best in your endeavors. Let's see. So Jan and Dale, and is it Allah? Did you guys just start? I just wanted to know where you guys are at in the program.
All right.
I'm starting my 3rd year. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Allah.
I'm starting my 3rd year in fall. So,
oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yay.
Thank you.
Almost there. Jan?
I finished the DrPH at the end of 1981.
Oh, all right.
I am here because of the influence of Ernie Medina and
oh, wonderful, wonderful. And then I think Dale. Okay. Okay, not a student. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for those of you who are definitely interested in our research. So last year I was able and blessed to present this research in APHA actually. And that was virtually during the pandemic. And then, so this year I'm also going to present paper number 2. They had invited me back to present the health benefits of our research. So that has been such a huge step in this, in my research. So thank you to those again who's been a huge part of it. So let me go ahead and start. I wanted to do, let's see, this. Okay, so good day, everyone. Definitely blessed to present this today. So one of the reasons why I wanted to present, I do have a lot of background in sports. I've been playing sports all my life, and have seen some of the challenges that we face. Well, first of all, one of the huge problems in the 21st century is overcoming the non-communicable diseases, which is one of the huge problems deemed by either, World Health Organization. So what I wanted to concentrate on is obviously there are causes or root causes in identifying these NCDs. And so basically, I love this chart because it shows the 4 group of diseases that, as I mentioned, are the causes. So which is, as you know, cancer, which is a huge part in our society, also cardiovascular diseases, chronic respiratory diseases, and also diabetes. Well, with that, a lot of the commonalities that cause these are because of the root causes that are unhealthy eating, excess alcohol, physical inactivity, and tobacco use. So when I was thinking what I should do my dissertation on, I really wanted to focus on one of those things. So these 4 groups of diseases account for over 80% of all premature NCDs. So hence I was just, talking to Dr. Medina, and I know he was such a huge pickleball person, and even before that, he's a great mountain biker, and he was my advisor. And I said, okay, what should we focus on? And one of my thoughts is, okay, let's focus on physical inactivity. So again, as shown in the previous slide, one of the major root causes is that, and it is a huge problem globally, and that it does require global action. So as you can see here, 1 in 4 adults and over 80% of the world's adolescent population is inactive physically. This increases death by 20 or 30%. Also, risk factors is huge just because of the inactivity, as I mentioned. And then again, it requires a global action. So identifying a solution would be to identify the risk factors, which is number 1, and also then to implement policies and programs that can help decrease the risk factors and hopefully provide opportunities to increase physical activity. So again, this is by the WHO. So we were thinking, what could something be that could help this? Well, during that time, when I was kind of starting my dissertation process, pickleball was definitely on the rise. Dr. Medina, it's been now, what, I guess maybe 5 years now, right, that you had introduced pickleball in the area? I know he's on.
Yes.
Yes, around 5 years.
2016.
2016, yeah. So that's about the time that we're like, let's do something in pickleball. It's the perfect sport to implement at this point because it's just hitting popularity, not just, in Loma Linda, but surrounding communities here as well as nationally. Well, it's actually deemed the fastest growing sport in the US, one of them, and now over 3 million, maybe even more players, and growing more than 10% each year over the past decade. US Open Championships, I know they didn't play last year because of COVID, but the most recent one in 2019, there were over 2,000 participants. When it started almost back in 2009, there were only 400. So you can just see exponentially how much this sport has grown. And again, it's expected to probably be even more than 5 million by 2030. Just in Loma Linda area, just to give you an update, the growth, not just, just this past 3 years, we've had so many communities just really incorporating the sport in the area. So we've grown to a lot. So if for those of you who do not know what pickleball is about, it is a mix of ping pong, tennis, badminton played in an outdoor or actually indoor setting on a mini tennis court. So I'm hoping that all of you have heard what pickleball is all about. But if not, I do have a YouTube link here that I can give to you. Again, as I said, it's absolutely the rising trend in recreation sport because it incorporates all ages. And I'll talk about that too and how that applies in this research. So we're thinking, why is it that this sport is really popular? But, and so we came up with a couple of things. First of all, we looked at what are some of the barriers in physical activity, right? You know, so you can think about it the opposite. Why pickleball addresses these things. It's because it's so easy to learn. It's not super technical, very social sport on and off the court. And people, again, as I said, from all ages can play it. So my kids are, when I started, you know, dabbling into really playing the sport, my son was only like 3 or 4. And I can give him that little paddle and he would, you know, use it, right? Now my kids are 6 and 9, and you know, we just play for fun. Even in the living room, they can use the paddle and the little ball. So it provides great exercise. It spans all fitness levels and activities and abilities. So even though, you know, let's say you've been injured in the past, it takes you where you are at your fitness level. It's competitive if you really want it to be. It's very accessible as well. There are portable nets that you can utilize, simple equipment, and really it's super fun to play. So when the further research that we were doing when I was just researching pickleball in general, there definitely is very limited as far as research on either the health benefits of pickleball. There's no current research on pickleball as a health intervention. There was not at that time anything about exercise addiction or exercise attitudes and beliefs in the pickleball sport. And so these are the areas where we really wanted to concentrate. So how we designed our study is basically, it will be a cross-sectional observational study consisting of solely pickleball players, regardless of gender, race, pickleball regimen, who are 18 years of age and older. I don't know where all of you are, if you are in your dissertation, but you know, the steps of getting approved by the IRB is definitely very interesting, but to actually have our research approved by them was pretty simple. It went pretty smoothly. We didn't have a lot of humps and bumps at that time. So when we applied for approval, we considered all ethical issues before we launched. It was a 43-question survey via SurveyMonkey. It did include a cover letter of consent to participate. Includes, you know, to address issues of anonymity, minimize harm, and equal opportunity for everybody. So that was the research ethics parts of it. And so for the recruitment, again, it's all pickleball players 18 years of age and were invited to participate. I was very lucky because Dr. Medina was a part of the US APA Ambassadors Association, so he was able to actually get our survey out to all the ambassadors, and then from then it just spread to their own communities. We were able to actually utilize our Facebook pages as well, and I know right now we're dealing with some resistance from the IRB with our other projects. Let's see, we also recruited local and other national pickleball club Facebook pages so that our link can be out there on social media. At that time, we were also participating in the USA Pickleball National Championships down here at Indian Wells. So we were able to collect some of our surveys from there as well. So at the end of a 3-week data collection period, we were able to collect 1,487 respondents. So we were definitely very blessed. So the main purpose of my dissertation was to measure prevalence of exercise addiction in the sport of pickleball, and number 2, examine the relationships of the demographics, pickleball regimen, and exercise-related negative attitudes or behaviors, and exercise addiction. So at this point, I'm going to talk about some of the results and discussion. The first and foremost, as again, we're looking at the risk of exercise addiction. So after reviewing various literatures on exercise addiction in other sports settings, because we tried to compare what we found to other sports as well. So for our study, we concluded that 4.6% was what we got as a number for in our study with over 1,400 participants that directed us to say that they do have exercise addiction. But when compared to other sports setting, we concluded that this 4.6% is actually at the lower end of the spectrum for exercise addiction. So as you can see here, I've listed other sports. So we have, football, sports students, fitness exercises, CrossFit, triathletes, and so forth. When we looked at other research on exercise addiction, there was a range between 3% to about 29% that deemed that they have exercise addiction in these sports settings. So as you can see, within our study having that 4.6%, it seemed like what we came into the conclusion of what we were looking at is that the higher level of athletic involvement, we saw that there was an associated higher scores on exercise addiction. Now, since pickleball is much more of a lower risk type of athletic involvement, it is actually a great sport for physical activity intervention in public health. So again, a lower risk means a greater physical activity as far as the risk of exercise addiction. Some of just our tables and what it looked like here. This table 2 compares pickleball players with and without exercise addiction. It's so super small, I apologize. So based on, we looked at demographics, pickleball regimen, and then also the exercise-related negative attitudes or behaviors. So for this table 3, we used logistic regression to really identify independent predictors of exercise addiction among pickleball players. So we found that from this table, we found 3 things that were pretty, that were significant. So those who were self-employed, you can see here, they were 4.72 times more at risk for exercise addiction compared to other working status. Hispanics were 2.5 more times at risk for exercise addiction compared to non-Hispanics. And those who play 4 or more days per week are 2.42 times more at risk for exercise addiction compared to those who play 3 or less days per week. So in the final model, income was no longer an independent predictor of exercise addiction. So just as a side note there. So at this next few portions, this is kind of like what we came up with for those 3 categories that we discovered. So there are discussions on being self-employed as a predictor for exercise addiction. It's definitely very interesting because when you think about it, self-employed individuals really own and manage their own time. So in essence, maybe they have more time to play pickleball, right? So this is where the playing frequency comes into play as well. When we looked at actually characteristic traits of these individuals who are self-employed, their traits and attitudes, their work ability, and their self-rated health also came into play as well. So, they are definitely very driven individuals. It's really interesting. And then lastly, what we discovered is the highest rate of self-employed individuals over the past decade belong to 55 to 64 age group. Over 30% actually of our participants. So which is about 82%, sorry, which is about 82% of the age group in our survey respondents. So in our survey respondents, majority of them were 55 to 64 age group. So that could definitely have played a role on this self-employed reasoning. Hispanic versus non-Hispanic as a predictor for exercise addiction definitely needs further explanation. In our research, we only had a very small sample size that we were dealing with, only about 3.9% of our respondents being of Hispanic descent, but 10% of those had exercise addiction. So really, I think we just need a larger amount of samples. So if we would run this again or do this again, we would look at that. Again, ethnic and racial differences in exercise addiction in general, not just, in our study in pickleball, just really needs further exploration to really determine the best preventive course of action. And then lastly, playing frequency. As you can see, playing frequency as a predictor of exercise addiction looked at really the amount of days played per week. So as you can see, majority of addicted players played 4 or more days a week compared to the non-addicted players who played only 2 or 3 times a week. So as you can see, increased days of play obviously mean more exposure to the sport that, either shows dedication or passion of the sport, or maybe they just had really a lot more time on their hands. But the key here too is to truly find the balance of maintaining the passion for the sport, and then, still avoiding the negative consequences or manifestations of that. So the next part of our study was really to look at the exercise-related negative attitudes and behaviors. Because yes, somebody can be addicted, but is that negative or is that just really truly their passion? So we kind of had to separate the two. The variables that were significantly related to exercise addiction, because as you can see on the left-hand side, there were 4 things that we looked at to quantify the negative attitudes or behaviors, whether it be exercise in spite of pain and injury, feeling guilt when missing exercise, obsessive exercise, and if they're taking medication to exercise. So basically here, the variables that were significantly related to exercise addiction in our study and exercise-related negative attitudes were exercising in spite of pain and injury and feeling guilt when missing exercise and obsessive exercise. But note here that the first 2, there were a high percentage of players reporting exercise in spite of pain or injury and feeling guilt when missing exercise. So lastly, we chose to report the mean number of total negative behaviors in order to answer our research question. And so to answer that, indeed, those with addiction reported more exercise-related negative attitudes or behaviors compared to those who were not addicted. So this is just a little table showing that. So our study showed that 89.7% of addicted pickleball players exhibited at least one negative attitude or belief. 79.4% of non-addicted pickleball players also exhibited at least one negative attitude and belief. So as you can see, not by much. The 2 most concerning negative exercise attitude and belief exhibited by pickleball players with and without exercise addictions are exercising in spite of injury or pain, just like what I was saying earlier, and then feeling guilt when missing exercise. So really the bottom line is that pickleball players are significantly at risk for negative exercise attitudes and beliefs, which could lead to negative outcomes. But again, future studies in this topic could further assess potential factors that may contribute to these findings. So overall, the prevalence of exercise addiction, if you just want that, in pickleball players was 4.6%. We looked at other sports in comparison. Variables that were significantly related to addiction were self-employed, Hispanic, and income, and also playing frequency. And then the negative attitudes belief is prevalent among addicted pickleball players, but in our study, not by much. Some of our limitations and strengths of the study was basically response bias, again, denial and inaccurate reporting, could be selection bias as a limitation, playing hours per week as well. In our study, we had, we came upon a problem of not really defining these very accurately. So I think, you know, another learning moment for us for this study. As far as strengths, first, it was definitely been, as we know of, a first study concerning exercise addiction and pickleball. We definitely had a high number of participants, and our hope is just to have this as a base or foundation in really future research. We're really excited for what's to come. Significance for us as far as public health providers, promotion of pickleball sport is, you know, definitely a great thing because it's low risk of exercise addiction. We can identify vulnerable athletes now and help prevent and preserve their health. But still with pickleball, we can promote healthy exercise, and not to mention promote healthy exercise addiction, okay? There's always a balancing act as far as when you are talking about addiction. I definitely want to thank you for this opportunity for me to share this afternoon now. And then just if you're curious, people that can help you in your own research and your dissertation, Dr. Medina's there if you're going to do anything physical activity. In my dissertation committee, Donna Thorpe helped a lot with the analysis, Dr. Dos Santos, and Dr. Adam Arechega. So all of these, definitely thank you for this opportunity for me to share. And here are my references. I know it's short, but any questions or anything?
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Catherine. She's open for questions now.
Any specific pickleball question, I will direct it to Dr. Medina.
He is the addicted one.
He is the addicted one. I don't know where he fell on that scale, but I'm hoping you're working on that negative attitude and beliefs, Dr. Medina. No, just you cannot just keep taking medication so you can play. No.
I take no medications right now.
And I'm hoping you're not exercising in spite of pain or injury.
Yes, I'm not.
Okay, good.
You're gonna present this in October, right, at APHA in Denver?
So I presented this last October, and I'm presenting our other research topic. Yes, it's the health benefits one.
It's in Denver, right?
It's in Denver this October, but I opted for the virtual presentation.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
okay.
I'm not going to go. At that time, they gave us an option of in-person or virtual. Mm-hmm. So to be safe, I said I'll just do the virtual, just because we don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
With you know, with the COVID thing again on the rise and Delta, you know, things that's happening. So, but thank you everybody for this opportunity. And hopefully, again, as I said, this is a huge foundation for future research in pickleball. There's definitely, we need more. There's not a lot out there. It's definitely a newer sport. But hopefully there's going to be more in the future. So we're excited about that.
Just to let you know, you were talking those stats at the beginning. Over the pandemic, it jumped up 1 million players in the U.S. So it's now at over 4 million players now. So I will hit 5 million way before 20. What was it? You said 2030.
2030. I think
30,
5 million. Yeah.
Yeah, we're already. Yeah. So we'll hit 5 million well before that. But the pandemic gave us a big boost.
Yeah.
So.
That I said, oh, probably you would know more about the stats now. No. So All right. Well, thank you
So-
everybody for your time.
So, question for for both of you, Dr. Medina and Dr. Catherine. So, what would be the possibilities of, given the with the background of increasing chronic diseases, what do you think would be the impact if we could introduce this type of exercise in student communities, especially in SDA communities, colleges, schools, and Seventh-day Adventist churches?
Yeah, great question. I think we've already started that since we've implemented the sport 5 years ago. I know Dr. Medina has started it in Azure Hills Church, and they started playing out in the basketball courts or even the parking lot. Because as I mentioned earlier, the ease of making the court and the portability and as far as equipment, you only really need a paddle and the wiffle ball. So Dr. Medina has already incorporated that, has been teaching in our universities, La Sierra here, even in the community. I know he does classes out in Ford Park. So he's done a lot of really involvement in the community and teaching overall. And I definitely believe that would be a huge impact. Now we could be a little bit more invasive, actually, future research of really identifying, individuals that, could have already existing cardiovascular disease, and then put them into like a 6 or 8 week course of solely pickleball and see and measure and analyze factors and gather data with that. That would be super awesome, right, Dr. Medina?
Yeah, there's a lot of anecdotal stuff in social media about how people have improved their health, benefited health-wise from pickleball. And Abel, you were asking about like churches and all. Yeah, we have this. I've been going out to different churches, to their health ministries department, and introducing pickleball to them at churches here in the Southern California area, where it just takes like a 3-hour clinic. I bring a couple of nets. I recruit several pickleball players from the area. We teach the health ministries people and some of the church members there how to play. And by the time we're done, they're playing full games. And then I put together a little church package of a net and 4 paddles, and some balls, and we sell it to them at cost, and so that they can have it and they can play right there in their parking lot. So we've been doing that, and like Kathy mentioned about some of the schools, I put together a 10-week curriculum for undergrad collegiate pickleball, and I've given that out probably over 100 times already, and I just gave it to somebody a couple days ago that's teaching pickleball now at PUC. So they're teaching it. I think almost all of our Adventist colleges have pickleball courts now. Southern, I know, has it. Andrews doesn't have it on their courts, but they do have pickleball courts there in the nearby in Berrien Springs, and they have a very active club there. That's where my mom plays. So, and then also, I don't know if Kathy, I think you know this, but I created the Pickleball Honor 2 years ago or 2019.
Yeah, for Pathfinder.
So we launched that at Oshkosh in 2019, and I think about over almost 300 Pathfinders earned the honor. And then those who didn't do the honor because we just had space limitations, we introduced pickleball to probably about close to, by our count, almost 2,000 Pathfinders that came through our exhibit booth over the course of that week. And then afterwards, we had 100 paddles that were donated by Paddle Tech. So at the end of that week, we donated, they wanted me to donate the paddles away. So we did a raffle drawing. We gave out all 100 paddles. And then, so those went all over the world. And then the 3 nets, one net went to Lebanon, another net went to Cuba, and another net went to the Bahamas. So the Pathfinder clubs from those areas, were able to take the nets and bring them back. Because in Cuba, the friend that I had that teaches pickleball or plays pickleball, she said they were just using a string between 2 trees or something like that as their net. And so now she sent me pictures back afterwards showing them playing pickleball, and it's like this little courtyard with the net set up, and they were playing there. So Pathfinders is a great way, because in that way, a pickleball player can approach a church and say, hey, put me in touch with your Pathfinder leader, and then you can tell the Pathfinder leader, I can teach the pickleball honor. And so because most Pathfinder leaders won't know how to teach that, so they can teach it and then introduce it. So we've taught it to a lot of the clubs here, the Korean pickleball, the Korean Pathfinder Club, Azure Hills Pathfinder Club. University Church wanted me to teach it for them, but then right at that moment, then the pandemic hit and sort of killed it. So, postponed it. So, but the students here at Loma Linda, ever since we've been doing our homecoming tournament now, we have done it 4 years, and it was the only pickleball, it was the only homecoming activity that was allowed in person because everything else was virtual. We have 6 of the 8 schools that are very, very active. Last night I was playing pickleball, and there was several med students, a dental student, and I think somebody from behavioral health was there as well as community people. And then this morning I was teaching 3 different pickleball classes. I started at 6 this morning, and then the last class I taught was to a group of nursing students. So a lot of the schools are really getting involved in, and I was talking to one of our alumni last night, Perry, that we need to get our school of public health going. Oh, Allied Health was there too, Kathy, a PT student was there. So we need to get our school of public health up and running, with either students and or alumni. So anyway, it's really active here in our college, in our university, and other colleges now are incorporating pickleball into their curriculum.
And Drayson Center also opened pickleball as one of the intramural sports. That's something new, probably in the past 2 years or so.
You're right. They're starting in August. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. And I just came from Mexico. We've had medical mission down there for the past 2 weeks. And one of our sites, Silhouette Clinic, they have a pickleball court down there. So that's in La Misión. So they have it there. And so it's really awesome to see how it's spread. And
the Olympics are starting tomorrow, right? I believe the Olympics, or Friday. I know it's coming up pretty soon. Yeah. So the question I get all the time is, hey, when is it going to be in the Olympics? And one of the criteria is it has to be in, I don't know how many countries, but right now through the International Federation of Pickleball, there's 53 countries that have association of pickleballs in their country. So we're at 53 through the IFP. So, it's growing, constantly. More countries are coming on board. So eventually I'm hoping in my lifetime that we'll see pickleball in the Olympics. So that's what they're shooting for. So, and I just want to take this opportunity to welcome Dale here. Dale, like I said earlier, is not a student. He was one of the ones that requested the abstracts of Kathy. So then I said, hey, Dale, she's going to be presenting, so you can see her in person. I don't know, Dale, were you one of the ones that filled out the survey at Nationals in 2019? Did you fill out the survey?
I'm sorry to say I did not.
Okay, all right.
But I appreciate the opportunity.
Where are you located, Dale?
I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Oh,
very nice. Well, welcome and thank you for joining.
Thank you. I'm a pickleball addict, but there's a part of the addiction that I'd like to tell you about that is not just playing. It's having to do everything with reading about paddles constantly, being on the Facebook groups that you check 20 times a day. There's a whole addiction outside of playing connected to pickleball. And one of the things that the Facebook forum that Ernie, that you're on, that I first got acquainted with you, I know somebody put down there, what has suffered since you started playing pickleball? And really, it's how has your addiction affected your life? And people chime in, and a lot of times they're just joking, but they're talking about spending less time with past friends or doing not as much housework. And my interest really in this is because of my pickleball addiction. And I realize how I have changed some of my relationships, which relationships are more important, how I schedule my day. And I'm looking at this going, well, maybe I need a little help. Maybe I got to cut back. I'm also playing tonight at probably the highest level of game I got invited to play tonight. And I'm nursing some injuries, and I'm spending the whole day just taking care of myself. So there are some negative effects of being addicted to this sport.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of where I'm at.
Oh, Dale.
I can definitely send you the survey and then we can look at where you score.
Oh, that's a good
Sure,
idea.
that would be great.
That's a good idea, Kathy. Then you can actually get a black and white number on that addiction scale to see where you fall. So
Okay, and
well,
then
good,
you know what
Dale.
else I'd be interested in is kind of the psychological reason why so many of us get addicted to this game. And
Mhm.
you know, as bad as this sounds, I get a bigger thrill out of playing pickleball than I do some of the stuff that I used to enjoy doing. So stuff that used to be important to me, I'll still continue to do it because I'm just that type of person. But um,
You know, Dale, you hit on a good point because, you know, part of the reason why pickleball exploded over the pandemic, during the pandemic, was because it provided something that a lot of people were missing during the pandemic, which was that physical and social interaction in a safe way. You know, so many people were so sheltered in there, and then when we could just set up a net, you know, I've done this myself, but we just set up a net in the cul-de-sac of our street, or people set it up in their driveway. You know, they don't even have to have a court, but they could find any flat surfaces. So people were able to do things as a family or do things with their friends in a safe way outside during the pandemic when everything else was just shut down. And so a lot of people were able to stay connected. And you're right, Dale. You know, I hang out way more with my pickleball friends than my pre-pickleball friends when my daughter was younger, and we had our close group of friends. Now only one of those families plays pickleball, so I see them a lot. But yeah, the other friends. But it was really during the pandemic. It provided the social, the physical, the outdoor. So it provided a lot of those things that during the pandemic were lacking for a lot of people. They were isolated, they were indoors, you know, and they weren't getting exercise. So pickleball really filled in a hole. So that's why I was calling during the pandemic. Pickleball was the perfect pandemic panacea. That was my tagline during the pandemic.
I also think it's the perfect way to retire because it meets physical needs, it meets social needs. As you get more involved in this game, it's easy to start, but to progress, it takes a lot of thinking, a lot of skill. And I find myself going over videos constantly, and I'm looking at footwork, I'm looking at how people are using their hands. There's just so much technical part. So I think it really keeps us sharp in many areas.
Yeah. And for those of you who are the teachers, I see Michelle is on here. And I know Michelle is a teacher, you know, faculty person down at in Cal State Long Beach. But for those who are into teaching, or you know, you're teaching or you're speaking to a lot of groups, one of the big negatives I found from pickleball is that I'm in a constant state of hoarseness now, because when I play pickleball, I'm a typical Filipino, so I'm always yelling, screaming, laughing, you know, whether I hit a good shot or a bad shot or somebody, you know, just something crazy on the court. We're always yelling. At least I am. I'm always yelling. So now I found I always have to be drinking because my voice is always hoarse now. So sometimes when I was going to go speak at a conference, I told people I had to be a mute for 2 weeks before the conference. And so when I was playing, you know, people would say, don't make Ernie talk because he's supposed to be mute for the next 2 weeks, because I needed my voice to heal up, or else I sounded like a frog, you know, when I was up front speaking. So that was one of the big negatives I found since I got back to academia, was that my voice is just always sounds like I'm hoarse. So, but thanks, Dale, for being here and joining in. So glad you could
Thank
make
you
it.
for inviting me.
Is there any other questions from the audience?
By the way, Razaz has also played pickleball. Hey, Razaz, we missed you this morning at the clinic. So she was there at the clinic last week. So
Hello. Sorry, I just saw my new job as a part-time with the school. Today was my first day at 8 a.m.
Oh, okay. Oh, 8 a.m. Okay. Well, we'll get you in the evening time or on Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday, please.
Okay.
I will see you later. Bye.
And I know Allah is starting. This is like her third day at her new job, right? Allah, are you? You still there? She's started at my previous employer at Beaver Medical Group. So, right, Allah, this is your first week, right?
This is my, I started last Wednesday, so one weekend at the office. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I told her if I'd known about pickleball back at Beaver, I would have had patients playing in the parking lot after hours, because they have big parking lots there. So I would have definitely been setting up a net there. So let me know when you want to do that, Allah. We can do it.
Okay. If there's no other questions, we just want to thank you. We just want to thank Catherine for this wonderful presentation. I think it will bring us ideas for all of us that are planning into doing our research for our final dissertation. And I thank you so much in that way. And at the same time, I want to, before we are dismissed, I want to invite you for the next presentation, July 29. One of the students, Michelle Peshek, the ones that you mentioned, Dr. Medina, she's also a student. She will be presenting on collaborating with the public health NGO. She's gonna take us on a virtual trip to Africa, basically Uganda. So what the public health system has to face regarding the challenges on working on a African country like Uganda. So you are invited for next Thursday for our PC ground rounds. And thank you very much for your attendance.
Thanks, Abel.